Hello everyone, welcome back to Educately Geography. Today we're going to talk about the different regions in North America, so let's dive in. Today's objectives, we're just first of all just going to locate North America on a map, make sure all of you guys can do that. We're going to give an overview of the 5 main geographic regions in North America. Sometimes the number does depend on who you talk to, but we've divided it into 5 main geographic regions. And then we're just going to practice identifying regions from pictures that we're going to show just to see what you've learned, just test your skills. So yeah, first let's just make sure we all know where North America is. This is what North America looks like from space on a satellite map. This part right here is Canada. You've got the United States, Mexico, and the rest of Central America. It's blocked by that header right now. I also included a picture of the United States because some of what we'll cover today, it's going to require some knowledge of the United States and the different parts of it, especially. So yeah, this is, in case you didn't know this, these are the United States. So first, let's just provide a list of geographic regions before we dive into them one by one. We're obviously going to talk about them in greater depth. So first you have the Western region. This is a little map we've put together that just divides most of North America into it's the 5 geographic distinctions that we've decided upon. Note that Greenland and the very North Islands of Canada, they aren't in any of the geographic regions we've decided upon here. The reason being is because they don't really fit into the main. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of the continent. If you'd like, you can think of this as a very Arctic zone with an Arctic climate, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're just really going to talk about these 5 main ones that consist of most of the continent. First, we have the Western region, which extends from Alaska all the way down to just the west coast of all of Central America. Next up, we have the interior plains, just the central area. We've numbered them, by the way, so 2 map corresponds with 2 on the map. Next up, we have the Canadian Shield. It's the bluish purple color. We have the Eastern region in green, and then we have the Caribbean region in pink right here. Again, the part that's not highlighted, this part, you can think of it as an Arctic area, but we're not going to cover that in this video. So first, let's begin with the Western region. Again, it's numbered 1, so it's the red region. It stretches from Alaska, so this state right here, all the way to Panama, which is the southernmost country in North America, and it essentially just traces the Pacific. You also have a lot of mountain ranges in this area. A lot of it, this region, even from Alaska all the way to Panama, is mountainous because you have a lot of mountains slightly inland from the Pacific coast, just from the way tectonic plates are structured. These mountain ranges include the Rockies. The Rockies are prominent in, really, if you can see my pointer, it blends in with the red. It's just the western United States. If you're familiar with Wyoming, Colorado, those states mostly. Then a bit into Canada also. You also have the Sierra Madre, which is a bit more south. It's in Mexico, just around this Baja California. That's what they call this little hook. And just that area, just tracing around this coast. You have the Sierra Nevada, which is in California, and then the Cascades, which is in Washington, which is in this area right here, the top left of the United States. You also have desert. So as you can see, this is a very it has multiple biomes and just different areas in terms of climate. The deserts in the Western region include the Mojave Desert, which is in California and southern Nevada. Again, it's hard to see with the pointer. If you can see, I'm blocking the one that's about where it is. There's the Sonoran, which is just south of the Mojave Desert, so that's in Arizona and southern California. And then you have the Chihuahuan, which is northern Mexico, and then I guess eastern Arizona and New Mexico, so right in this area right here. They're all pretty close together. They're all roughly in the same spot, especially the Mojave and the Sonoran. Those are practically connected to one another. So yeah, very diverse landscapes. Here we have 3 pictures from the Western region. Here, this is an example of a volcano in Central America, I believe. There are a lot of volcanoes in this area because it's a part of the Ring of Fire, just a place where there are a lot of volcanoes and earthquakes as a result of tectonic activity. This is a picture from the Rocky Mountains, again, near Colorado, Wyoming. I believe that's where this is taken. And then here we have a desert again, just diverse landscapes. This one was taken in the Mojave Desert. So next up we have the interior plains, number 2 on this map. It's in orange. This really comprises the central portions of Canada and the United States. And it's great flat farmland. It's definitely not as mountainous. Nowhere near as mountainous as what we just talked about. And the reason it's so flat is because of the soil, and is good for farming, is because of the soil that was deposited from the previous ice age when these glaciers 10,000 years ago receded back. They just flattened, and they just caused the flat landscape, and also just deposited lots of soil that's just very fertile. And this area is like a staple in like food growing in like the United States, and a lot of food is shipped to other parts of the world. The Great Plains, that's what they call them in the United States, especially the central region. They grow wheat, barley, corn, canola, and also other crops there. It's just a pretty good variety of crops. So here's some pictures of this area. This top left picture, just note how flat it is. There are some rock formations, as you can see, especially in this picture. This was taken in the Badlands. It's in South Dakota, which is it's like in the central north area of the United States. This is kind of an exception to the flat trend we were talking about, but this was formed like many millions of years ago. And it's still a part of the interior plains because it's still in that region. It's just a kind of an exception if you want to think about it. And it's not very high in terms of it's not like a big mountain range. It's not really even a mountain range to begin with. This is more of a classic picture you will see from this area. This one was taken, I believe, in Nebraska or Oklahoma. Just complete flat farmland, which is very characteristic of that area. Let's go to Canada, completely. The Canadian Shield, number 3, it's in purple or blue. It's relatively flat, but it's not as smooth as the interior plains. It's a lot more rocky, and it has a lot of lakes, as you can see, and also islands. This doesn't show that many lakes on this map. This isn't really based on lakes, but you can see there's a lot of islands in northern Canada. That's also a part of that terrain. So it has a lot of tundra, and which is land covered in permafrost, and permafrost is basically just soil that doesn't really thaw fully. And this results in, for the most part, small vegetation, which is usually fed on by ox, caribou, and other animals. Those animals are very characteristic of this area, and also as a result, as Canada as a whole, caribou, very Canadian animal. So here are some examples. Here you can see the vegetation that's a little bigger. Sometimes some areas are warm enough and have enough of a forgiving climate where you'll see some larger vegetation like trees, but this is still in that Canadian area, so they say that it's in the Canadian Shield. But this is a lot more characteristic of what we talk about when we say the northern parts of the Canadian Shield. This is a tundra. You can just see rocks that are just deposited in the ground, and just this small vegetation, just no big trees. Really just rocky terrain, nothing crazy, no massive mountains, but just this not so forgiving climate. Next up we have number 4, the eastern region. We moved this map up right here. It's in green. So again, this is pretty diverse, just like the western region. It contains the Appalachian Mountains, which run from Canada, southern parts of Canada, all the way down New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, all the way down to Tennessee and Georgia. They run pretty much through the eastern part of the United States. It also contains the Atlantic coastline, so just it's tracing the coast of the Atlantic Ocean and the United States. And also the Everglades. The Everglades, they're just a swampy wetland area in Florida. If you're not sure where these states are, by the way, I'm pointing to them with my pointer, southern Florida. So yeah, just a lot of diverse landscapes there also in biomes. So again, this region also extends into Central America, because Central America is also, it also has some lowlands and foresty areas that kind of resemble that of the Appalachians, but not really. This is really just it is different, but it adds to the diversity of the region. And yeah, it's generally wetter than other regions, at least compared to the western region, which has a lot of And the western region has some wet parts to it, especially towards the mountains, but like compared to the desert areas and also like the interior plains, which are a bit more dry, this area is pretty wet in terms of like precipitation, and also compared to like the Canadian Shield. They get more rainfall here, especially. So here we have some pictures. This one was taken in the Appalachian Mountains in the United States. Here you can see this is a bit more different in terms of like vegetation when you compare it to the Appalachian Mountains. This is taken in a rainforest in Panama, which is like the southernmost country in the United States. It has a lot of rainforests. And yeah, this because it's like a rainforest, and it's like kind of on the eastern side. It's not really like as mountainous there. They do have volcanoes. This is towards like the more like low part of the region. They characterize it to be in the eastern region. This picture here was taken in the Everglades. Again, it's not mountainous. It's just kind of the opposite. It's very low and swampy. You can see an alligator here. They have lots of alligators. Interesting. And lastly, we have the Caribbean region, number 5. It's in pink. So the Caribbean is pretty unique, as you can tell. It contains over 7,000 islands and reefs. Not all of them are necessarily inhabited. Some of them are just like these tiny pop-up islands. They vary in formation and topography. Like some of them are extremely rocky as opposed to others that might be more sandy and flat. Because you have so many, they're not all going to be the same. So, and the waters around the Caribbean just home to tropical sea creatures like sharks, seahorses, turtles, and often you think of fish from the tropics, you think of colorful fish. They do have very colorful fish there. So here are some examples. This is a reef with some fish swimming around. You can see this one is pretty colorful, as I just mentioned. Here you have a more rocky formation, as obviously something here has been built by humans, but like you can tell this is more rocky than this island. There's like a great range of just, again, not these regions aren't like composed of areas that are 100% similar to one another, just roughly similar. These are just like the islands. That's what makes these areas similar, just the fact that they're located in this region, not necessarily because they're exactly the same. So yeah, let's practice identifying some regions. Despite their differences, we can still identify them based on pictures. So first, let's look at this picture and try guessing where this picture is out of the 5 regions. If you have no idea, you have a 20% chance of guessing. Really 25. I'd imagine you wouldn't say this is in the Caribbean. Just note the rocky terrain that's at the start if you need a hint. Just at the beginning, there's like a rocky terrain here. And I think the giveaway is this animal. This is a caribou. And where did we say caribous are highly like known? In Canada, it's the Canadian Shield. I think the giveaway here was the caribou and also like the rocky terrain. I guess these trees, if these rocks and this caribou, if they weren't here, maybe you can mistake it for like the Appalachians, but really it's just, that's why we included the rockiness in like the caribou. Makes it characteristic of the Canadian Shield. This one's a bit more obvious, I think. This one's pretty obvious. It's you can see a desert with like small vegetation, some rocks, but I think the desert, the dryness gives it away. It's the western region, some of the deserts that are there. I believe this is also from the Mojave Desert. I'd have to double check. And lastly, we have this picture right here. As a hint, note the hilliness and like the types of trees you're seeing, but note that it isn't 100% rocky or like completely mountainous with like large massive peaks. It has some lakes, but it's just mostly like these, they're mountains but like that are more hilly instead of like steep rock. Those are characteristic of the mountains you see in the east. Again, the eastern region is diverse. I could have given you a picture of alligators in the Everglades or of the Atlantic coast, but this is really characteristic of that region. This is a part of the Appalachian Mountains. So yeah, that does it for today. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have any other questions about geography or want to watch more videos on geography or on other subjects, we have plenty of subjects here at Educately. Feel free to do that. Feel free to browse our site. But until then, see you later.